All right, let's dive right into this explainer. I want you to think about your typical morning for just a second. Let's be honest. If you're like most of us, you probably wake up already feeling a little behind. You immediately reach for your phone, gulp down whatever coffee you can find, and basically just try to survive the day. But today, we're going to look at a totally different, incredibly powerful alternative. We are going to follow a single day in the life of Jacob. He's a 32-year-old freelance designer. And we aren't just looking at some random morning routine here. We're going to uncover the precise, science-backed habits that absolutely maximize mental clarity, boost raw brain power, and do the whole shebang without that inevitable crash and burnout.
I mean, we hear it all the time, right? Hustle harder, grind longer, push through the pain. But how often do we actually stop to ask what it takes to wire our minds for peak resilience and focus over a full 24-hour cycle? Like, what does that architecture actually look like when you design your day specifically around how your neurology operates best? Well, the average person's default is what we call hustle culture. It's this non-stop, totally draining grind. You know the drill. 6-hour work blocks, stuffing lunch in your mouth while staring at a screen, and this constant digital overload that just leaves you running on fumes by dinner time. Now contrast that with brain culture. This is an optimized mind that relies on strategic, focused bursts, which are then followed by deliberate recovery and deep stillness. It's all about working with your biology instead of constantly fighting against it.
Okay, Section 1, the Morning Brain Kickstart. Let's look at how we lay the foundation.
Rain or shine, Jacob steps outside within 30 minutes of waking up. That sunlight physically anchors his circadian rhythm and gives him a natural serotonin boost to boot his system up properly. And he follows this with a completely silent morning to activate his prefrontal cortex. That's the logic center of your brain. So instead of flooding his mind with stressful emails and the news, he does a quick 10-minute meditation, just sort of watching his thoughts. This practice literally shrinks the amygdala, the brain's fear center, which makes him highly focused and way less emotionally reactive before he even glances at a to-do list.
Then, when he finally does sit down at his desk at 8 a.m., he does something totally counterintuitive. He doesn't check his inbox. No Slack, nothing. He sets a timer for exactly 90 minutes of pure, zero-distraction deep work.
So why 90 minutes? Jacob is deliberately aligning his heavy lifting with his biological hardware, specifically his ultradian rhythms. You see, our brains naturally function in these 90-minute cycles, where we hit absolute peak alertness and creativity. Honestly, if you've ever felt completely fried and useless by noon, it's probably because you're fighting these natural rhythms instead of riding them. By working in these specific chunks and then taking a mandatory 15-minute break, his brain just maintains this steady hum of energy all morning long.
After that very first deep work session, he heads outside for a simple 20-minute walk. But here's the kicker. No headphones, no podcasts, just walking. Taking this time totally away from screens reduces stress hormones and actually boosts blood flow right to the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain. It's an incredibly powerful habit. I mean, Steve Jobs famously used walking for his most important meetings, and Beethoven relied on long walks to develop his greatest musical ideas.
The actual mechanism behind that walk is just fascinating. Walking puts the brain into what's called the default mode network. It's basically this idle state where creative thinking completely thrives, and your subconscious starts connecting dots you'd never see when you're just staring at a monitor. It really proves that movement isn't taking a break from thinking. Movement is literally intelligence in motion.
Moving right along to Section 2, Midday Mental Maintenance. This is all about sustaining that momentum.
To keep his brain from hitting that dreaded afternoon slump, Jacob relies on a highly specific sequence: a screen-free lunch, a quick physical recharge, and some authentic face-to-face interaction.
At noon, he actively avoids those greasy, heavy meals that force your body to divert immense amounts of energy to digestion. You know, the ones that spike your cortisol and leave you feeling super sluggish. Instead, he essentially eats brain fuel. He loads up on salmon for omega-3s to support neurotransmitters, blueberries that are packed with antioxidants to protect his cells from oxidative stress, and dark chocolate to boost blood flow. And by eating without any screens, he ensures that the stress of multitasking doesn't hijack his digestion.
Then, when his focus naturally starts to waver around 1 or 2 p.m., which happens because of a chemical called adenosine building up in the brain, he does not just push through the fog. Pushing through is the exact mistake most people make, and it just leads to hours of really low-quality work. Instead, he takes a strategic 20-minute power nap. Done right, this brief little rest dramatically enhances memory consolidation, restores sharp alertness, and gives a massive boost to emotional regulation for the rest of the day.
Before he dives back into deep work, He makes sure he has one real face-to-face conversation. Not a text message, not a quick voice memo. A genuine connection. This releases oxytocin, which acts kind of like emotional WD-40. It's the essential glue that keeps his mental clarity intact, grounds him, and severely reduces baseline anxiety in our hyper-fast world of glowing rectangles. All right, Section 3, the afternoon cognitive flex. Time to build some mental grit.
So his afternoon schedule is a complete departure from the morning's intense output. Instead of trying to force more deep work when his cognitive resources are naturally dipping, he completely disconnects from the digital world, explores random topics just for fun, and physically challenges his willpower.
Around 3 p.m., he enters a strict digital fast. Think about it. Every single notification, every little buzz in your pocket is a tiny dopamine hit that creates a vicious cycle of craving and distraction. If you find yourself constantly reaching for your phone the second you have a free moment, this fast is exactly how you break that cycle and rebuild your capacity for deep thought. By cutting off those hits, he is literally rewiring his brain to enjoy stillness, and stillness is an absolute prerequisite for complex problem solving.
Let's look at this quote. You don't stop learning because you get old. You get old because you stop learning. He pairs his tech-free mental space with a 5-minute curiosity burst. He might look up why cats purr, or maybe how ancient aqueducts were built. He treats learning like mental cardio, engaging with it simply to trigger his brain's reward system. Staying genuinely curious without a specific agenda keeps the mind incredibly agile.
And when he hits the gym twice a week, he doesn't go in with the aesthetics mindset, just trying to get a six-pack. No, he uses the iron mindset. He lifts heavy weights to deliberately push through resistance, which profoundly teaches his brain that physical discomfort actually equals personal growth. Plus, as an added bonus, lifting releases IGF-1, which is a powerful brain-repairing growth hormone that sharpens his focus long after he leaves the gym.
Wow, Section 4 already? Evening resilience training. We are entering active recovery mode.
This evening routine acts as a critical bridge between the workday and sleep. First up, an uncomfortable cold shower. This provides a wild boost of norepinephrine, which resets his alertness and trains emotional control. Second, he does some slow, light movement, like yoga to jazz music, to gently stir up BDNF. That's a crucial protein that basically acts like Miracle-Gro for your brain cells, promoting fresh neural connections. And finally, he actively organizes his daily learnings.
That final step is what we call the teach-back trick, and it relies on the famous Feynman technique. By explaining a new concept out loud in his own words, literally as if he were teaching a child, he forces his brain to organize and truly internalize the information rather than just passively remembering it. This is what actually turns mere information into deep, lasting intuition.
Finally, Section 5, the nighttime brain upgrade. Time to clear out that mental RAM.
Listen, your brain isn't designed to store tasks, it's designed to solve them. To combat the Zeigarnik effect, which is that nagging background anxiety you get from all your unfinished business, Jacob does a messy, unfiltered mental load dump right onto a physical notepad. He gets every single thing out of his head. He then writes down exactly one unsolved problem for his sleeping brain to subconsciously process, and he logs his daily wins to wire his mind for continuous momentum.
Because ultimately, getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep is when the real physical upgrades happen. It's the period of active neurogenesis. It's when the brain literally clears out metabolic toxins and builds sturdy new connections based on everything you did that day. So, after seeing how a perfectly optimized day builds up to this exact moment, the only real question left for you is what unresolved problem will you let your mind solve tonight? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.